evolve, they need to get into that center of the gut to develop themselves completely around the circle of the numbers. And the fives are sort of natural meditators. Meditation comes TM, yeah, especially certain types. It's very sort of natural for them. They can do that. And not like even in a formal way, like I'm going to meditate, but they just meditate. And they're just sitting there, and that's what they do well. Okay. Oh, yeah. All right, where am I at here? More. Okay, tips. How to get along with a 5. Oh God. Be independent, not clingy. Yeah. Once they sense that you're getting really attached to the relationship, and that used to happen all the time, it was like a trigger point. It's like, okay, they have to run at that point, and then they'll eventually maybe come back. So it's just that overwhelm. They feel like they're losing themselves. You can understand. Be succinct. Yeah, don't go on and on and on. They get it. Be succinct. Tell me up front exactly what I'm committing to. That's, very important. They want to know ahead of time. What am I getting myself into? Like, what time are we leaving? What time are we going to get home? Are we going to stop along the way? All of those type of things. Okay.
So this is ways to relate to a 5?
Yeah, how to get along with a 5. So in other words, be respectful of these things and they will feel more comfortable. Plan an exit strategy with me for social events. We're going to have to give the mic to you in a few minutes. Be straightforward. Frame requests rationally. They do not deal with high emotion, like you're definitely going to lose that argument or that request. Be calm, just be rational. Ideally, I want a home base that is drama-free. Yeah. When I open up a little, no, that's a big step for me. Like that may seem nothing to you. That's a big step for a 5. Don't put me on the spot. Give me a warning. Yeah. Keep clear boundaries. Be aware of mine. Don't intrude on the area I've deemed mine. So, the person I knew did. It was like they had this hobby, and it's like, nope, no-go area. It was very interesting, because I thought, I'll go along. Nope. If you want me to share, lead by example. I'm private. Emotions are a foreign language. Now, again, these are, they sound so definitive, and okay, so all 5s are out of touch with their, no. It's a spectrum, but they can be. Okay, all right, to get along with a 5 at work, objectivity, precision, thoroughness. So that's kind of the world that they live in at work, and that's what they want from you as a co-worker. Develop in-depth mastery. So they love that, of course, about themselves, because they are the masters of whatever their specialty is, and they want you to do the same. True expertise, not BS. The 3s can pretend to be the shiny star on the tree kind of thing. That isn't going to cut it with a 5. They're going to want, precise names, numbers, and So don't try and BS them. Have a love of learning. I don't know what they quite mean by this. Can break barriers of possible. So I guess be open to the breakthroughs. And as a leader, able to assess problems and resources. But the challenges then for them at work, to be more engaging and supportive. So again, they're not always going to be like patting you on the back and encouraging you. It's like, just go do your job. I mean, after all, you're being paid for it. Why do I need to have, so just go do it. Okay. Network. Open up and share. Express warmth. Develop skills at relating and communicating. Dare to be bold, assertive. Don't play it safe. There is that sense of playing it safe for fives. You kind of feel that about them. Practice making contact beyond your comfort zone. I mean, these things are true for anybody, really, but especially for fives. Cultivate abundant attitude and generous spirit. So, as again, like giving. All right, the examples are celebrities: Mark Zuckerberg, Stephen Hawking, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Anthony Hopkins, Michelle Pfeiffer. Temple Grandin. Oh yeah, there's a great example.
Who's that?
She was
She's an autistic.
she was an autistic woman.
And she's a veterinarian, and she reimagined our entire industry.
Oh, her, yeah.
Yeah, so Temple Grandin is a woman who's on the autism spectrum disorder. She's very intelligent, she's very articulate. She's also a veterinarian, and she created a whole system for beef and recreated how we treat beef in the meat industry. She's an amazing speaker. And I think 3 years ago a movie was, she's living,
Yes.
and I think 3 years ago a movie was made of her. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. Cute. Fictional characters: Ebenezer Scrooge, Sherlock Holmes, see, detectives, Dwight on The Office, let's see, the IT crowd, Morris Moss, I know the IT crowd well. The Incredibles, Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, and The Brain, Pinky and the Brain. Anyway, and then here we go with political historical figures: the Buddha, Friedrich Nietzsche, writer, Charles Darwin, Bobby Fischer, chess player, Sigmund Freud, therapist, Albert Einstein, Jane Goodall.
Oh, my goodness.
She was the
Wonderful fives.
She was the lady who did all the research on the apes. So again, you can see like the career that it could follow could be like kind of adventurous and out there and all that, but her work then is like, here she is out in Africa just working with apes.
Chimpanzees.
Chimpanzees. Oh, Sheldon. I would say he's a 5 out of 4 wing. What's the name of the program? The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon. Yeah. So, real brainy nerds. There's a whole nerd stream here. Your inner nerd. Let's see. Boy, time's flying.
Jane Goodall.
Okay.
That's pretty nerdy. Pretty nerdy.
So Wendy isn't here today. And won't be here next week. But we talked about the subtypes. So within each type or number, there sort of is 3 different streams. I'm trying to figure a good way to express this. One is called self-preservation, and these are like primal energies. Like you just have these deep down inside, and you'll come from one of these 3. Self-preservation, which is like your main concern. So already the 5 is pretty self-preservation to begin with, so probably many of them are going to be, the subtype is going to be self-preservation, because it's a defensive posture, trying to sort of always ward off being overwhelmed. Then you have the social subtype, which is the more out there, meeting people, interacting with people. So some people love that. That's like the extroverts. And then you have, I don't like that term sexual because it just really throws the thing off. One-on-one. It's the more intimate one-on-one relationships. So it gives a whole different flavor to any of these types. And ideally, like, Almost did it again. Almost knocked over the table. You have one which is dominant, you have another one that's secondary, and then you have the one that is your weak spot. So very often how that would turn out is, so if you are a social type, you're all out there, and self-preservation isn't your thing because you're out there. The weak spot for you then might be the one-on-one. And so often a very good example where you'll see this very clearly is at a party. If you go to a party, observe yourself, observe others. Are you out there meeting everybody, wanting to get to know people, and who are you, and what do you do, and maybe I can connect, and maybe we can go for a walk next week. So that's the social type, okay? The self-preservation is hiding behind the plant in the corner, hoping that no one is going to come up to them and say, "Oh, hi, who are you?" And I was at a party Saturday night, someone's birthday. Anyway, I spent most of the evening sitting with people that I knew. And there was a whole group of people who I didn't know. I didn't go up and say, "Oh, who are you?"
No.
I'm just happy in my little group over here, and that's fine. So I'm very much into the one-on-one. So the thing to do is to try and identify your strength, identify which one is second, and then see which one is your weakest one. And if you want to start evolving, the thing to do is the next time you go to a party, go and talk with 5 people that you don't know, and it'll be uncomfortable, but you'll start developing a skill. And obviously, for someone like me in ministry, with a one-on-one thing, I had to really learn how to be the social. So I have that now. But it would have been something that I learned or worked at. All right, so if you're a self-preservation 5, your home is your castle. And think about that, not just in terms of being at home, but even when you're out in the world, your home is your castle. So you're always like in your home. Like it's like you're carrying your home with you, that attitude to I'm really not out there in the world because I'm at home. Some water. So feelings of scarcity underlie the avarice for independent privacy and for hoarding. So again, self-preservation, scarcity, I don't have enough, I need more. Have a tendency to save, accumulate for a future loss. So anticipating the rainy day, it's going to happen, I better get more nuts, squirrel them away, Have a see home as the secure refuge from an invading world. Seek protection of a lair. So, the idea of a bear, maybe in hibernation, sort of.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a safe, personal, private place. This will not be in a shared family space. So, they have the need maybe. Skybox?
Yeah.
Ultra sensitive about privacy, aware of others and their shared space, feel invaded upon. Can feel knocked over by people's expectations, obligations feel like a great drain, takes little for fear of expected reciprocation. Takes little, yeah. So in other words, if they suddenly think, oh my God, now I've got to give something back. It's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Very self-reliant, rarely seeks help or advice from others, tries to keep life simple. Chief defensive tendency is to withdraw, very avoidant, non-confrontational. Intimacy difficulties from connectedness and grasping to freedom and releasing. So we've talked about that, how difficult relationships are. They repress the bad child within because it feels unsafe to reveal that side of themselves. Anger feels dirty. May experience dry depression. To hold in and hold on feels necessary. Anger can leak out in misanthropy. when in power may disdain ordinary mortals. They're not as smart as I am. Can feel alienated, deprived by foregoing life's pleasures in favor of personal space. So there's always the boomerang. You know, they go through a very Spartan life, and then they feel like, yeah, look at everybody else is having a good time, and I'm not. You know. And they can, again, it's like that trapdoor that I talked about at the one, they can sort of go to Vegas and go crazy for a weekend maybe or something, you know. Social. Totem identity. Search for totems, symbols of the social group, which are sources of knowledge. Seek knowledge in totemic symbols such as scientific formulas, esoteric paradigms. So they would be very interested, as I said, in the occult and in off the beaten track philosophies and things like that. Have preoccupation with mind as a source of power. That's where their juice comes from, is this sense of power coming from their own minds and abilities. So I would imagine as people age, if your mind isn't as sharp and all that, I imagine that would be very hard for a 5. Concerned with titles, degrees, credentials, relate socially through defined roles. Some, not all, but you can see how the prestige of being a professor, and I'm Dr. so-and-so, PhD. Attracted to systems of study that yield big picture accounts of social forces. So again, just in terms of changing society, political stuff, social insight, all of that, that would be a great place for 5s. Knowledge is power, and forewarned is forearmed. Insider information is protective, so they do use their knowledge to protect themselves. Belongs to some kind of in-group connected through specialized information. Likes to refine thinking with people who know in a setting that is free of small talk. So you can just imagine like a bunch of nerds or a bunch of professors all just like nerding out on knowledge and May live in high society, knows the right people, belongs to the best clubs. Again, one kind of section. Doesn't like to compete, will not jockey for rank, wants to be called or recognized. May enjoy speaking a professional language that only a few people understand. May appear haughty, condescending, may tell others how to do things quicker, better. More social than other 5s, torn between group connection and wish for privacy. Okay, the one-on-one 5s, confidence and trust. Preoccupation with key disclosures and emotional ties that can endure separation. Looks for confidence, the few with whom you share an understanding and trust. Private bonding in one-to-one relationships through the exchange of confidentiality. So that's where they would feel perhaps that they're getting their relational needs met, is if they have a confident, like a person at work, who they're working on something and they're sharing this information. That sort of is the substitute for an emotional attachment or relationship. So it's around competency and knowledge again. Can forever enjoy a remembered love friendship by replaying it in the imagination. Intimacy is highly charged with element of secrecy. Only we two share this. Trust only a few people who would love to do so totally, but are terrified. Yeah, I ran into that. May lust for intense, brief, separate, and highly meaningful personal encounters. Avoids verbally expressing love because it's difficult, embarrassing, and binding. See, the binding, it's the overwhelm again. It's like I'm smothering here. Feelings feel clear when alone, yet become muddled, tongue-tied around others. More trust in non-verbal sexual communication, prefers to express love wordlessly. So don't expect them to be the gushy type that say, I love you. Because that's too much of a commitment, And they may love you, but they're just not going to say that because it's like, ugh, Terrifying. Now I've made a commitment. Intense desire for the idealized mate can become a slave to the idea of a perfect mate. Fear human components will contaminate love, keep love in the mental realm. Intimate others can be a big threat due to demands for intimacy and connection. Value those who know and respect boundaries. Difficulty as others move towards them. May experience parents as strangers. May have felt verbally constricted as a child. And it doesn't say it here, but one of the challenges for a 5 actually is in their parental relationships. Because again, when you have children, there goes your space. You know, you're committed. Now you have to share yourself with these little beings. And that can be very overwhelming or challenging problem. Okay, do we have any 5s who would like to react and share something?
I'll share. I came in here today and I was still thinking, am I a 9 or a 5? And the first thing you said, Jerry, was about a 5 is they don't know what they're not sure. We don't have enough information yet. And so much of this really, it hits me. And having my daughter here, you know, when things I was uncertain about, I say, I don't have that. She'd say, oh yes, you do. Freaking, you know, it's helpful to get feedback from those who know you. The one-to-one is absolutely where I'm comfortable and loved. That's where I will share openly, and I love to hear from them, and I want to share, and I spend hours on a one-to-one.
Share what you do.
I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I like to do one-on-one. It fed me, you know. But in my work, I had to get up in front of groups of people and talk. I did a lot of teaching in a chemical dependency program in Oakland, and I trained volunteers to conduct facilitator groups and to facilitate continuing care groups. And it required a lot of interaction with large groups, and that was hard for me. I only felt comfortable and safe when I had a lot of information about the topic I was sharing, and I saw myself not as performing, but as giving information. And I am glued to the internet, and if there's something I don't understand, I'll spend a whole day on one subject, going from website to website to try to get to the bottom of it and get understanding. But I don't have that superior, I don't feel like I know enough. I don't feel one up that way.
Yeah. Well, you're not that subtype.
Not the subtype.
You're one of the other subtypes.
Must be the, yeah. But I want to learn more about it. I haven't got enough information yet. Another book, you know. I hoard books, but I'm a minimalist. And so I have a tendency to throw stuff out and clean out. It's like I'm an anti-hoarder, except for books and vitamins. I do hoard that stuff. And the best thing I've done for myself in the last few years was start taking jazz piano lessons. I made a wonderful connection with my piano teacher in Berkeley, and we become friends, and we end up half the time me counseling him and half the time I getting a piano lesson. And but I know I need to spread out more. But that rings so true.
Right. And that's a beautiful example of you getting a hobby. That's the creative.
Getting a hobby.
And it expresses, and it brings you into connection, one-on-one. Clearly, you like.
I love it.
So you're probably an unusual 5. I would imagine most 5s are self-preservation.
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe those professorial types. But for a one-on-one 5, that's kind of like going against the grain almost.
Yeah.
Anything to share back there? Anybody?
Another 5.
Oh, we've got 2 5s over here. So I wonder if men are more 5s than women. I don't know, that's just crossed my mind.
Well, this is good. Instead of double think, now I've got 9 think. So I think I'm just going to go home, sit in my rocker, and process this.
Yeah, process the whole thing.
Thank you. All right, Jim.
I'm Jim, and
I've been coming, this is an important day to me because I've been coming here off and on 15 years or so at Unity. I figured out today why. I didn't figure it out, Jerry did. He just said something about, well, if you're a 5, you like Unity because you're a seeker, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, of universal truth.
Yes,
Of the
thank
universal
you.
truth.
And the other thing is, I didn't know what Enneagrams was, never heard of it a month ago. Didn't know how to spell it or anything. But I came here because for that reason, that I didn't know, and I respect a lot of the people that come to Unity and so on. So I thought, well, give it a shot. Well, while Jerry was introducing this thing, I was skipping ahead on the book, and man, I nailed it. I'm a 5. And everything you said was just, I have a little bit of a 6-wing, blah, blah, I'm going over the 7 and so on. But it's just stunning how accurately it fit me. So my natural curiosity and so forth, I guess, is the reason that I'm here and why Unity kind of opened the door. I would like to say one anecdote. When I was in high school, town of Missouri, the librarian told me, she said, Jim, you're the only one that's read every book in the library. And it's funny enough, I never did any homework ever. I never took a book home in high school. But for some reason, I had that curiosity. Now, skipping ahead to today, I'm a chemical engineer, and I've been an executive and all this stuff, or whatever, and I've traveled a lot, but I never get enough, I never see enough when I'm traveling. I just love travel for the reason of learning. So I live in fear of running out of things to read about.
Okay. We have a whole library here of metaphysical books that I know you have not read.
Anyway, it's a pleasure and thank you very much for
What
letting us.
subtype do you think you are?
I'm a solid 5 with a right wing, the way I read it. And very much a loner. That's one of the main reasons I kind of forced myself to come and eat the cookies and stand in the corner and observe everybody.
You seem very social, though. Like, you seem very comfortable.
Well, I got
interacting.
pushed into a kind of an executive role early on. I didn't like technology, and so I gave up chemical engineering to be an executive. And so I had to talk. I was like you, Jerry.
No, that's great that as a 5 you're willing to talk. And the very important thing that Jim just said there is that he was a chemical engineer, right? And that he changed. So he maybe evolved the subtype. Like he may have been more the, introverted knowledge and all of that, but then that wasn't satisfying, and so developed the more social wing as a manager or whatever.
So when back in the 70s, my husband and I got into one of those higher consciousness groups and did a lot of work. And he's a 1 and I'm a 5. And we discovered that we were meant to be each other's teachers. This was a great shock to both of us.
Say more about that.
Well, I mean, he's everything I'm not.
Okay.
And I'm pretty much what he's not, but except we both are now. A whole lot more. It did, and we've been married a long time, but I think our marriage really began back then. Because we actually started understanding each other, and not always trying to be understood, but to understand and to learn from each other. And so anyway, it's been quite an interesting journey and meant a whole lot to me.
Well, that's a wonderful example of the power of the Enneagram, is that once you start to understand another perspective, that then you can be in relationship better with them, but that you can also then incorporate that, like you can go to a point of integration, as we say, and eventually we're being asked to integrate all of the points, like to understand all of them, to get their perspective on things, and then see, well, how can I incorporate some of that? Because you know, there's part of all of us that is a bookworm. There's part of all of us that is, we need to study. We're seekers, you know, whatever it is. And there's part of us that probably has a fear of scarcity. And like all of these things that we've talked about, they're all little threads. It's just that the fives have that, they've more threads. They've weaved it into a big rope. And we've all done that with different things. So that's a beautiful example that Claudia just shared there of what relationships are really supposed to do. Don't you think the universe, why do we end up with the person that we end up with?
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Dennis is looking blank, he has no idea.
has to do with karma.
Is for us to learn these.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to ask you, that didn't register today with you, didn't resonate?
I'm not a five.
Okay, because I swear at one point today I was thinking, oh my God, have I mistyped you all along? Well, I think he's a 9, but I shouldn't say he is. Yeah, but Laurie, this will be the last question and I'll let you go.
I wonder why it's just so easy. I mean, I type 2 of my best friends as both 5s in a couple, 2 5s, they fit everything. I mean, they're different subtypes, but it seems so easy to figure out what somebody else is. And now I'm like, I thought for sure my whole life I was a 1, and now I'm going, maybe I'm a counterphobic 6. Why is it so hard to type myself?
So the question is, why is it so hard to type ourselves? It's called denial. Well, there is the being, what's the saying about I can't see the wood from the trees? It's like getting the perspective sometimes is challenging. But as we go through this, I know it's in one of the books, that like 2s and 9s can be hard to differentiate. So that there are some numbers that are kind of challenging to get a grip on. But then there are some telltale signs often, and I'll say this not in any way judgmental, because a 1 would never do that. Like 9s have, and I was talking about this at the beginning, 9s have a certain tone. It's a kind of it's lower on the scale, it's almost sad sounding sometimes, it can be soporific, it can put you to sleep, it's like a heavy, it's serious, you know, it sounds almost depressed sometimes. And what I was thinking is that, well, maybe all 9s resonate on the scale, the musical scale, at that frequency. And 1s have a kind of a, I think, a thinny, kind of a high-pitched kind of a voice, you know. So maybe all 1s register there on the scale. So there are little telltale things, like, again, the one about how people dress, 4s